I'm Renilde, and I work for the national agency in Belgium, Flanders. That comes later as well. And I work there for the field of adult education and for languages. And I'm very interested in storytelling as such, but I like to listen mainly. Welcome here. We work for Erasmus Plus, which is intended for European and international cooperation, because we believe very much in the strength of and the power of international cooperation. And as we are here with people from several countries, I think you all have experienced this strength as well. Yeah, it's learning from each other. It brings forward innovation. It gives you new ideas, and also it makes you more aware about what others are doing within your expertise and the subjects you are working for. And so in this presentation, I'd like to go with you through the program and what possibilities it offers for you in order to be able to meet each other physically, virtually, and how you can work together and what exactly you can do via this program. Erasmus Plus is a funding program, so that's the nice bit, as I know that you're all in difficulties now with Corona. Yeah, so we give money. Yeah, that's important. It's a funding program, and it's owned by the European Commission. The European Commission gives the money for Erasmus Plus, especially for the actions and the possibilities that I'm going to talk about, to the national agencies, which means that you, if you want to get hold of this money, you have to apply at your national agency, which makes it easier for you. You don't have to apply directly to the European Commission in Brussels, but in your own country. That makes it easier, because there is a national agency in each member state and each country that's involved. Erasmus Plus deals with education, and this is for you as a storyteller. I hope you can see that you are an educator, and if you think of education, you might think, no, that's school education. That's people sitting on desks and listening. But we in Erasmus Plus, we see education in a far broader sense. It can be going to a museum, you learn there. So a museum and the people working in the museum are educators. Or you can go to a cultural heritage site. Also that site is a kind of educator to you or to the people visiting it. Can be a library, you can learn a lot. So in Erasmus Plus, we stress the importance of formal and non-formal learning. Non-formal learning is the learning that I've just been talking about. Formal is the learning that you get official degrees and diplomas and certificates, which is not the case for you as storytellers when you are telling stories. So a storyteller, for us, we can look at you, and I hope you can see yourself too as an educator. And if you want to get hold of the money of Erasmus Plus, you should consider yourself, or be able to consider yourself, as being an educator, a non-formal one. The most important aims of Erasmus Plus, thus, are to improve the quality of education and training. So education, we're not talking only about schools, but also about you as a storyteller. So it's about cooperation and learn from each other. It's about innovation, bringing forward new things, and also internationalization so that you work together in a European way. It's also dealing with key competencies and basic skills. But Guy will talk about the key competencies later. And the program has a specific aim or a special aim when it comes to social inclusion. And I think for you as storytellers, this inclusion is important too. Storytellers, why do you tell stories? In order to see yourself as an educator, you can see, why is it so powerful? You must ask yourself, How can I contribute to education? Where's my role? Can I interpret heritage? Is it intercultural learning that stories can help understand? Community building or language learning? He will go closer into this as well. So in Erasmus Plus, we've got two main actions, Key Action 1 and Key Action 2. And Key Action 1 is the learning mobility for staff. And learning for mobility, well, it used to be by plane mainly, but as the world is turning greener, now we are talking more about green mobility. But anyway, so moving, going to another country. So you leave your home place as staff, and staff here means you as an educator, you as a storyteller. You can move and do learning mobility. In the program, there are 4 sectors, 4 different wallets I call them, 4 different pots of money. There's adult education, there's higher education, vocational training, and school education. Now, if you want to profit from Key Action 1, you must look at who's eligible, who can apply. Now for you, and this very much depends on what kind of organization you are. So if you're only one person storyteller and you have a company of your own, that's okay, but you're not a school, so you cannot apply for school education. You're not a university either, so you can't apply within higher education. So what can you, as a storyteller, where can you get money for KA1 in Erasmus Plus? Well, you can get it in adult education. But this means that you must have a close link, or you must be able to prove this in your application, that you have a close link with adult learners. So if you're dealing with children and schools only, then you cannot apply here in Key Action 1. There must be a link with adult learners, the ones you're telling stories to. You can apply as an individual organization. So if you have your own company, even a one-person company, that's okay. You can apply. And you could also do it as a consortium. This means that many houses, several storytellers with their own company can apply in one application, and that we call a consortium. So only one bigger organization applies for the other houses. Is that clear? I hope it is. What can you do then with this money? What's the exciting bit? Well, you could go on a structured course or a training event. And training event can be a seminar, whatever. So it's very open what you can do. And you can also go on job shadowing. That means that you are going to a colleague in another organization, a relevant organization, where you can learn and take home things that you can integrate in your own storytelling sessions, performances, yeah, in order to make your learners, your listeners, learn better. There is also a possibility to have to do a teaching assignment. So this means that you can work in another organization dealing with adult education or with storytelling for adults. So where you can work for 2 to 60 days in a similar organization. Now, the interesting bit is also that you can get colleagues from abroad to do job shadowing at your place. Now, they always have to apply in the country where they are living and working, not in your country. But they then get money to come to you. So we pay for travel costs, accommodation, that's all foreseen. And the funding here is really good in Key Action 1. So you can ask them, colleagues, to come to you, do a teaching assignment for you. They can attend a course maybe in your place. And interesting is also that you can get trainees for free, recently graduated people, could be a teacher who's interested in learning about storytelling, and to come to your place and help you out with things. So that's also a possibility, and you get them for free. A nice example that I can give here is that in Belgium, Flanders, we had an application of a support center for people and community building from Brussels. And they went, that was done as a consortium, this application. It was approved in 2018. And 8 people of them went to the job shadowing and training to do job shadowing and training in the Village Storytelling Center in Glasgow. Lauren Bianchi came to Belgium to give a talk on heritage and storytelling and community building in Aldenbiesen. And that's how the people from Brussels got to know her. And they said then, oh, we are going to apply for this funding. And they got approval. They got 15,000 euro for this. And so 8 of them went to the UK, to Glasgow. That's job shadowing and training. This is one example of a KA1 learning mobility. Now I'm coming to the second, that's KA2, Key Action 2. And again, here you see the 4 domains, the 4 sectors in the program. Where can you now, as storytellers, where can you get money from? Well, in all sectors. You see, you can work, now you can apply as a storyteller to work on the 4 domains. And you could only do this, also do this cross-sectoral. So this means that you could have a program or a project in which you deal with school education, but where you deal with, for instance, intergenerational learning, and you also gain an impact on adult education. Or you could also, there could be a teaching department involved. So higher education could be, have an impact too there. So you see that here all possibilities are open. And why is this? Because in a KA2, Key Action 2, we talk about partnerships. There you need a minimum of 3 organizations of 3 different program countries. So it can be a school, a museum, a private company, whatever. Every organization that can contribute can participate. So it can also be a city. And you see here below, there's one man working at his desk. Well, you could be such a lonely storyteller with a company, and you can participate too. I heard there's somebody from Canada here present. Well, if you want to cooperate with Canada and you already have 3 program countries involved, you can involve Canada, but then this organization should bring in an added value, an extra added value to the European group, so to say. And then Canada, Israel, whatever, Azerbaijan could be a member as well, and paid by the money of Erasmus+. So it's all about cooperation and working together, and here in partnerships. Important are the European priorities, though you have to, with your project in KA2, you have to link up to the policy priorities. And for instance, something that could be of use or interesting for you as storytellers in 2020 is, for instance, cultural heritage. That's something that you really could work with, I think. And also social inclusion, like tackling discrimination and getting this better integration. Here for this KA2 action, you can get a maximum of 150,000 euro. I've forgotten the euro, I see. 150,000 euro per year for a maximum of 3 years. So that adds up to 450,000 euro in total. Now, what kind of projects can you do in KA2? Well, there's first the exchange of experiences. So here you cooperate with your partners and you exchange. How do you do this? How do we that? For instance, if you work on bilingual or multilingual storytelling in order to improve the community life, well, how could you do this, and how do you do that in the Netherlands? How do we do it in Flanders? How is it done in the UK or wherever? So Here you cooperate and you exchange experience. You try out things that are being done in another country, or you invent something new. That's also completely possible. The other type of projects here is output oriented, and that's you work together in a consortium, in a group that comes to concrete results, really output oriented. For instance, you can make material for other storytellers that are using storytelling in education. And how does that work? What kind of didactics can you, manuals you can make, whatever, tutorials. So this is output oriented. The first type is far more process oriented. Now, if you go for an output oriented project partnership, then of course the things that you have developed should be disseminated, spread as far as possible in Europe and countries beyond if possible. Yeah. So it's you have to spread the things that you made, and so they must be useful also for others. An example of such a KA2 project is one, and linked to storytelling also, is from Flanders. It's called 4 Elements, Legends and Stories, Improving Foreign Language Learning and Intercultural Competencies of Adults by E-Learning. So you see there is here e-learning, there's intercultural competencies, and language learning, and stories and legends. This was it is coordinated by a formal adult education organization. It has partners in Estonia, in Spain, in Italy, in Slovenia, and in Greece. For instance, the partner from Estonia is a library. So here you can cooperate with organizations that together are able to produce what you need, what you want to make for yourselves, but then mainly also for other organizations in Europe. As you see, they got funding 289, 140,000 euro to do this project. If this presentation is sent to you, and I think it is, then you can click on the link. There's a link here, and then you can find out who the partners are and the short summary of this project. Now, within this KA2, other possibilities that you have, and you can ask extra funding for, but within the 150,000 per year, obviously, that's joint training for staff. So staff, educators coming together and learning about the topic and the theme of the projects. It can also be a long-term assignment, so where you work in a partner organization up till 12 months. So even for a whole year, you can go and work with your partner. And interesting, very interesting is also the blended mobility of learners. So here you can bring together the learners, the ones you're teaching, the ones you're educating. They have virtual meetings, and on top of that, the possibility to have the physical meeting. And so they get prepared well, they get to know each other, and also they have this flavor of cooperation in Europe. Interesting in what makes Erasmus Plus interesting for you, apart that it gives money. Moreover, it's easy. In that way, the money, there is no co-financing. You don't have to deliver evidence about what your co-funding bid is. That's not asked for. And we work with unit costs. This means like 1 person, 1 kilometer, 1 day. So these things, that's 1 unit. And then it's multiplied by the number of kilometers, of persons, and whatever. And it's lump sum. So you don't have to prove it anymore. We don't want tickets for drinks or for food or whatever. That's not necessary. If you can tell us, look, we've done the things that we intended to do and that we promised in our application, then it's okay. So this is good point in Erasmus Plus. Makes things easier. But don't forget, there's only 1 deadline per key action per year. So don't forget it. For KA1, it will be somewhere in February, and KA2, it's in March. If you forget it, then you have to wait for another year. So in order to get more information, contact your national agency. And if you click on the link here, you can find all addresses of all the agencies in the European countries. So that was, yeah, also when you apply, you get your budget and your contract from the NA, from the national agency, from your country. Well, this was my part. And here you also have my details in case you have other questions that you want to ask later. But now I'm going to pass on the floor to Guy so that he can
shall we do first? Shall we do first, because we have some questions, so maybe we can do
there
first.
Are questions. Okay.
Yeah, some questions we saw in the chat. Janneke, you had a question. Can you unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yes, I have unmuted myself. Hi, Renilde. Just to make sure that I get it, the KA1, you can invite someone over to teach. You can go somewhere to teach, but you can also go somewhere to learn.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Okay,
the learning,
that's interesting.
So, and learning is via a course, but pay attention. As a storyteller, you are considered as an educator. So there must be a link about non-formal education. So it's not simply performing art, for instance. That's not it. So as an artist, and I know you are artists, but you have an educating role. So if you apply for money for things that you want to learn abroad, then there should be a link with the learners. Yeah, what are they going to get out of it?
So I should learn something that I can teach to others, basically.
Teach to others, or via storytelling.
Okay.
Yeah, and for instance, if there's a course on how do I fight racism, maybe it's of interest of you because you have a very multi-diverse audience, and you want to integrate parts of that into your storytelling session. Maybe it could be helpful for you in order to understand it better. But you have to explain your national agency, why do I need this course in order to get my learners to learn better in certain skills. But Guy is going to go more in depth about that.
Okay, thank you.
Then we have a question, and I think that will be a hard question, but everybody wants to ask this. Aurora, where are you? I don't see you on the screen, doesn't matter. Just open your mic and ask your question. Oh, there you are. Hey, I see you.
Yeah, my question is related to countries involved in a project like Erasmus+. I would like to apply for a project that would involve more than 2 European countries, but possibly would be based in the United Kingdom. Would that be a problem?
It could be up till now. Now the UK was a program country. We are hopeful that they will pay more, as they had to pay up till now, so that they will remain as a partner country, as a program country. Sorry, it's like Turkey. Turkey is not a member state, but Turkey can apply for Erasmus Plus and participate as if they are a member state, because they are paying extra. Same for Norway, by the way, and Liechtenstein. They're all paying extra. Yeah, Serbia is too. Yeah, so it's not only the member states, but the countries that want to be part of it as a program country, they have to pay more. So the UK will have to pay more, and then they're in. And I think they will remain in the program.
Good. Now,
then it's not a problem for the UK to apply as the coordinator, but then you need 4 countries, because you need 3 program countries plus then 1 from another. Yeah, if you want the UK. But if they are a program, then it's not a problem.
Okay.
I see the people from the UK indeed supporting the idea of Renilde that the UK will pay a bit extra so that they stay in the program. So I will call my friend Boris Johnson and I will pass it through.
Thank you.
Or Dominic Cummings. Do I have to call him, you think? Good. Or is he busy with something else? Good. There was a Joan. I don't know if you still have this question, Joan, about UK, about the USA.
Mine was about the US. I wondered if there's any way someone from the US can participate or not.
Yes, you can, but not for the time being, not in KA1, not for the learning mobility, but you can participate in KA2.
Okay, thank you.
We have until now. What are the costs for a non-member country? But that's I see the question of Laura, but that's something which is on governmental level. So I don't know even if Renilde knows what Belgium pays, but I mean that's not for people who apply. That's really between ministers.
Yeah.
Good, but it's a good question. So I think we go to Guy, and he will take over the floor. So thank you, Renilde, for now, and probably there are more questions, so we'll come back to you.
Let's find out if this one works. Yeah, okay. So my name is Guy Tilkin. I used to work in Landcommanderij Aldenbiezen. I started an international storytelling festival in 1996, but meanwhile I'm retired, so I don't work in Aldenbiezen anymore. This year we would have had the 25th edition of our International Storytelling Festival, but of course due to Corona it didn't take place. So I only left on the 1st of December 1990, what is it, 2019 I mean, and 4 months later already there was no festival anymore. But of course that were really force majeure reasons, a pity, but I hope that next year there will be another festival. So I'm retired, but at this moment I am the chair of board of FEST, of the FEST network. And working in Aldenbiezen, I did a lot of international projects. That was my original job in Aldenbiezen. So European project, educational project, cultural project, that was my job. And of course, European projects dealing with storytelling in the end was also part of my work. And I would like to share some of these elements there. Some people who know me well may recognize some of the slides, so I apologize for that. But I think that here there is enough. There are enough new blood in the group, so I hope that they will be interested and inspired by what I'm going to tell. The first thing I would like to show you, and this is a stone in Spain. And if there are people from Spain here, I really would like to know where this slab, this stone slab is situated. It must be somewhere. But I would like to emphasize the fact that storytelling is so important for people, that storytelling really is part of being a human, so that we are kind of homo narrans. And here you see, so, and here always at dawn, people tell stories and they listen to each other to find out who we are, to be able to dream and to get lost of our fears. So, and that's, I think, a very nice quote on storytelling. I also would like to show you 3 other quotes. One is from Philip Pullman. So after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. And especially this one from Jean-Paul Sartre. So man is always a storyteller, and he lives surrounded by his stories and the stories from the past. And he sees everything that happens to him through the stories, and he tries to live his life as if it was a story, as if he is telling it. That's the translation of this very nice quote. And I really would like to say this because storytelling is omnipresent, is everywhere in our lives. And even Shakespeare had a nice quote in this respect: all the world's a stage and all men or women are merely players. And since we are going to since we're dealing with education, I would like to give a quote of Marcia Rossiter, who is a psychologist, professor in the States somewhere, I don't remember where. Anyway, she's very much involved in narratology. And if you're really interested in storytelling and narratives and the use of narratives in human development and in adult learning, she wrote really a great series of books on this topic, and they're really, really nice. And here you see this quote, and that's why I think it's very important. Given the centrality of narrative in human experience, we can begin to appreciate the power of stories in teaching and learning. But we can also see that the application of a narrative perspective to education involves much more than storytelling in the classroom. And I hope this is in a way a second enlargement of the evening. Renilde, and we know that when we use the word Erasmus and even the word Erasmus Plus, people think of higher education. And I hope that now, after Renilde's introduction, that you know that it is that first of all, even if we use the word education, it is much broader than classroom. It is much broader than formal education. I would prefer the word learning. And then we can say, indeed, learning happens everywhere. We learn everywhere. And everywhere where learning comes, then it's not really what I mean, the word education has a different load, but I think we have to enlarge it here again, and we talk about learning. And I think that Renilde asked you to see yourself as educators, but I think that's a dog, by the way. I think that it's easier for you to see yourself as people facilitating learning. And I think that's also very important. Yeah, storytelling. First of all, it is reciprocal. We all know that. So there is the teller and there is the listener. But both participants in this process will learn. Yes. So, and here, that's why the title here is to tell and or to listen. And that has a special, has a special effect on people. So first of all, and that's what I would like to emphasize, helps improve narrative mechanisms. And I understand that last week last time you learned, you listened to a narrative therapist. This is not about therapy, but narratives also have a lot to do with all kinds of learning. So first of all, it is like a meaning-making process. People make sense of what they learn, of what they experience through narratives. And storytelling and the narrative structure of storytelling improves this process. So it helps people in the meaning-making process. You experience something, and when you experience things, then you can link it through things that you already in your head. You link it through a meaning-making framework. And you do that through metaphors, through emotions, through feelings, but also through narratives. And so that helps you to make sense of the world and to find your place in the world. Storytelling also relates also improves memory. We all know that the story helps us building images in our head, and you can easily remember the images much more than the words, for instance. So a clear narrative and a clear image is easier for you to help you understand. Storytelling improves your imagination. Storytelling is also emotional. It touches your heart. So it appeals on your feelings. It urges you to act. So storytelling also has is much stronger. Therefore, storytelling is much stronger than just information. Yes, it's a social construct. The meaning-making process is a social. You create meaning because you learn from your peers. You learn from your social and cultural context. And it's something you do together. And in that respect, a narrative mechanism and meaning-making processes builds your identity. It helps you develop. So, and that's a whole theory. And if you read Marcia Rossiter, then you can. It's of course then theoretically supported there. So, and that I think is a very important element for storytelling. So we're not only talking about performing art. We're not talking about listening. There is a broad package of thinking even that goes with it. And on the other hand, and that's also what Renilde mentioned, storytelling helps develop lifelong learning key competences. And these are some of the lifelong learning key competences. This is the European Commission who created a list of 8. It's not a full list here, a list of 8 key competences a human being should have to function in society, so to speak. And here you see that a number of these lifelong learning key competences like deal with verbal and social elements, of course, like gaining verbal and communication skills in the mother tongue and or in foreign language. Imagination, creativity, and learning to learn is also a key competence. Social and civic competences are also very important. Cultural awareness and expression, and digital competences. And here you see that if you think if you think of storytelling and storytelling techniques, then you can see that a number of elements here in these key competences come back in storyteller, or storytelling techniques can improve a number of these or have an impact on these elements. And that is also very important when we think in terms of European projects. Renilde talked about priorities. So the European Commission has a number of priorities when they send out a call to apply for projects. And in this case, it dealt with inclusion, and the first one was I don't remember it, but anyway, the element of key competence development is also always an important element in the priorities of the Commission. When we talk about storytelling in education, then I think it's important that we are not only talking about telling stories in the classroom, or not even only talking about telling stories in an adult education area, so to speak, or environment. Of course, telling stories is important, and you can do a lot with telling stories and stories that come into the classroom, and you do thematically a number of things. But it is much more than that. It is also about storying content, and in this respect, storying content that a teacher, and now I'm talking about teachers, so I'm talking about the classroom, I'm talking about teachers, that teachers could offer their subject or the content of their subject through story schemes, through a narrative, meaning that they add a number of elements like place and emotions and characters and a plot, etc., etc. And even at the bottom of this slide, I asked the question, teacher training, do all teachers have to become storytellers? And then for me, the answer to the question is no. Do all teachers want to become storytellers? Probably not, yes. But I think teachers might be interested in offering the content through a narrative. And if we think in terms of teacher training, and so when a storyteller approaches, or there is a course for teachers on how to use storytelling techniques, this probably, I don't know about the existing courses, but this is not always just a storyteller who tries to teach a teacher to tell stories. I know that there are courses where a storyteller and a pedagogist, they ask the teachers to bring their curriculum, and that can be a curriculum of math or history or whatever, and there they will try to find out elements within the curriculum that can be taught or presented through narratives, through stories, yes? And that is what is meant by storying content. And I gave some examples here. We all know Archimedes, and we all know, I don't know if it was in, but we all know the guy who is in his bath and he cries out, Eureka, because he discovers that when he goes down into the water goes up, and he realizes that the two volumes of the raising of the water and the volume of his body are identical. We know that image, and that's an image that always will be with us. So, and that's how we remember it. When we look at Newton, we all know the story of the apple in the garden and the apple that fell on his head, which is not true, of course. This was a story. But anyway, it's a nice image. And it's a nice image that helps us to learn about gravity in this case. Yes? And I added Jamie Oliver, which is not a scientist, but anyway, yeah, perhaps he is a scientist. Because for me, Jamie Oliver is a storyteller. He's not only a very good cook, but he is also a good storyteller and a good interpreter. Because when he is giving his cookery show, he always relates to to life. He relates to your own kitchen. He relates to his history, his mother, or whatever, or when he traveled. So he is storying a cookery show. And in that respect, Jamie Oliver is a great interpreter and also a great storyteller. And that kind of practice is, I think, very important, or could be very important in education as a pedagogy. And then I would like to refer to the question of Janneke, where Janneke said, okay, can I go to a course abroad? The answer is yes, but you cannot. We're talking about education here. We're talking about learning, a learning context, and about using storytelling in education. So a storyteller can go to a course abroad where you can learn how to work with storytelling techniques in education, for instance. That is a very valid course. You can not, as a storyteller, go to a course abroad to become a better performer on stage, because there the learning is missing. I hope that the difference, the learning of the learners, sorry, not of the storyteller, but the learning of the target group in the last example, that one is missing. You see the difference? Yeah, I hope that it is clear now. Of course, we're talking all these elements of working with stories that can be done by teachers, but it also can be done by the pupils. I will come back to that. We're talking about oral, but the digital element, it's one of the key competencies, is also quite important. Yes, and then the next one is working with stories. And then, yeah, working with stories is much more than literacy and oracy. In this case, you see here a number of elements that go along with working with stories. There is, of course, the stories, there is the content of the story, the message of the story, the values that are, the messages and the values that are given with the story. Of course, that is, and then we're talking about development. There is giving meaning, there is narrative thinking, but there is also the writing, the editing, the images, the design. We're talking about a storytelling project now. We're still at school at this moment, yes? Or perhaps adult education is also possible, but we're in a learning context, and a reasonably formal learning context. You see the social elements, the group work, the audience, everything that has to do with voice. There are the interactive and emotional elements, connectivity, sense of belonging. So you see that working with stories, that's what I tried to say in the beginning. We're not only talking about telling, you walking into a classroom, tell a story and go back out. Yes, that is, of course, I'm saying nothing negative about that. I'm only saying that if you think in terms of projects, you should go broader. It is much more than that. Okay. Then, of course, and as I said, learning happens everywhere. I would like to go outside the classroom and outside formal education. And here you see that storytelling is also very important in terms of processes for inclusion. And especially, I will come back to that later for the Sherazade project. We have worked on that. So, and here you see storytelling is a bottom-up narrative art. You don't need to buy a very expensive instrument to become a storyteller. So you have your voice, you know stories, you know what you live through, you have experienced things. So it really is bottom-up. It's really basic, and so that means that the threshold to come in is quite low. Of course, there is the connecting and interactive nature of storytelling. There is the teller, there is the listener, and there is interaction between the two, because the teller changes stuff because of the reactions of the listener, etc. There is very important, there is this community of co-creation. There is, in terms of social, to hear and to be heard. Yes, and now I'm thinking in terms of projects where there are immigrants or newcomers or whatever, vulnerable groups or whatever other groups where people become familiar, learn from each other. Stories are heritage. The stories themselves are heritage, but also storytelling is a perfect way to disclose heritage. They help us to understand other cultures. As I already said, it is a constructivist meaning-making process. You learn to understand the meaning making of others. You learn to understand the value of other people through stories. thanks to the metaphors, you create metaphors, or you work with metaphors, and you can bypass the unspeakable. Imagine traumatic people, and I suppose that you had that last time with the speaker then. I think it was Ovidio, yeah. So working with metaphor and helping to surface things that otherwise could not be addressed by this person. To develop social competence, we already talked about that. So we move from school to outside school. And here I would like also go to heritage interpretation. Heritage interpretation is the art to create a relation between the elements of a heritage asset on the one hand and the meaning making and value frame of the visitors on the other. But I would like you to see heritage not as an abbey or a castle or a church. Heritage is everybody, is everything that is valid for a community, that is important for a community. And that can be food, that can be the story, that can be a lot of things. Yes, a habit, an event. Yes, so and the translation of that, the interpretation of that is very important. So also here we're looking at storying content, but now heritage content. Imagine a guide, for instance. Yeah, to offer a place, a character, an activity, a plot to heritage elements. To relate to the narratives of the visitors or to the narratives of the community. And that's, again, this meaning-making process. So interpretation basically is a meaning-making process. It is helping the meaning-making process of other people in this case. Yes, and their storytelling also can play a very important role. Now you might say, why, we're talking about education, why is this, but heritage, as Renilde already said, learning happens everywhere, so heritage is also a space for learning. Yeah, if you visit a national park, you can learn a lot. There is a ranger who will help you to relate what you can see with your daily life, with your value framework, with your meaning-making framework. That is interpretation, but that is also a storytelling process. I would like to give you briefly some examples of projects that some people have done. For instance, in Antwerp, here in Belgium, there was the Red Star Line Museum, and the Red Star was a boat, a very important ship during the migration wave to America from Europe to the States. And from a big part of Western Europe, people, also from Germany and Poland, people moved to Antwerp and took the boat to go to the States. And they created a museum, the Red Star Line Museum in Antwerp Harbor. And that was also linked to a kind of story element, because of course Antwerp is also an international city with a high number of people from other countries. And there they wanted to link the stories of the newcomers now, the migrants now, to the museum. And they collected within the adult education organizations in Antwerp, they collected a number of migration stories. And those migration stories, some of the selected migration stories were presented there. By the way, there was no professional storyteller involved in this project, which is a shame. And I think that's very important to realize. Of course, there are numerous examples of storytelling for language learning. I'm not going to into that. A very nice project that we did, and that was with Rien van Meensel, who was in the audience this evening, was a project about poverty at school, where Rien, as a storyteller, worked with parents who had difficulties, financial difficulties, difficulties of deprivation of poverty. And through the stories, she helped a set of, or a number of parents with that situation to surface their ideas, to surface their problems that they had with their children, because there were children at school in poverty situation as well. And so, so they used storytelling techniques to help surface meaning, situations, and what I said in a way sometimes for people, the unspeakable. Yes, And even at national level, there was a video made of the results of this to be sent to parents' associations in other schools to realize what poverty at school means. The Sherazade project, and here I think Sherazade project was a project where we dealt with storytelling for inclusion, working and all kinds of storytelling techniques, and Heidi Dalsveen was a partner in that, storytelling techniques in adult education, working with migrants, working with newcomers. But here, and this is, if you remember the KA2 project Renilde talked about, this project is a project specifically, first of all, output oriented. We created a manual, yes, and the target group for this manual were storytellers and people working in the migration sector, so to speak, in cities, also in adult education situations and so on. So there we had a specific target group in this case of professionals. So, and that was a KA2 project with output. Tales was also a KA2 project with output, but in Tales, the target group were teachers. So that was a book for teacher training. Yeah. You probably, I hope you know the Human Library, which is a very nice, technique where people, usually or from all kinds of communities, are invited to tell an event of their life. Let's say 15 minutes. So, and they're trained in a way to tell the story in a narrative and in a correct way. And you can, and it's also set up as a library. That means you come into the building and you ask for, and you have a list of books, but the books are people. And so you want this book? Okay, I want this book. And then you go on a face-to-face, one-to-one table, and that person tells you a story. That's the Human Library. Also, of course, I don't have to tell you that learning is involved in this and that a professional storytelling can play a role in this. Yes. Allotment stories was also a very nice one. That was in, I think in Germany, yes, where there was, I don't remember which city, but there was a section in the periphery of the city where a number of people got an allotment, so little gardens. And so, and the stories were collected of all those, usually men, I have to say, all those men who, why do they have this allotment, and what is... Then I can tell you that at this moment we are applying for a KA2, the last deadline 3 months ago. FEST, I mean, is applying for a project called People, Places and Stories. And this is a project about heritage, and it's a project about competences for creating heritage community. Now, what is a heritage community? You know what heritage is, and heritage can be intangible heritage, it can be tangible heritage. But now, or think of a park, and there are people living around that park. And then the question is, do people find this park important? Is this heritage for them? But perhaps it has a different meaning than the original meaning of the park or the abbey or the church. And so you create a community there. And then, of course, this is all related to stories. And heritage communities also have a kind of problem, or it's a challenge for them to tell the story of their heritage, to tell the story of their community, to tell the story of what they as community find important in this heritage. And that's where FEST will come in. That's an application that is not yet approved, by the way. Yes, so, and I would like to round up this. So you see, okay, there in Erasmus Plus, there is KA1 and KA2. KA1 is about professional development. And as Renilde said, you are entitled to take part in the adult education section of KA1. But as I would like to repeat it, it must be related to learning. It must be related to learning from a certain target group. So you can, but then the other question comes. You can go, you as an individual storyteller or an individual organization, so to speak, you can go to a course on how to use storytelling in in inclusion processes, or working with migrants, or in the classroom. Yes. The question now I would like to ask is, who is organizing these courses? And then I can say very few people are organizing these courses. Yes. And I think, and there KA2 comes in, because KA2, the cooperation project, they can create those courses. So in an international project of KA2, you can work, for instance, on, like we did in Sherazade, like on the role of storytelling and storytelling techniques in working with immigrants and vulnerable groups. And you can create a product, and you can create a course, and then people can come to the course. Yes, that's the whole thing. In KA2 cooperation project, as Renilde already said, you as a storyteller, or like offering storytelling techniques, you can come in at different levels: school level, colleges and university, and adult education. But in any case, it needs to deal with a specific target group then, like Sherazade dealt with adult educators and people working in the migrants and inclusion sector, or the social sector, community work, or in schools, or in regular formal adult education, or something like that. So this type of project is possible, but you will need partners there. You will need, of course, to write an application and so on. I think that, oh no, there is the last slide here are two manuals. The manual, the Sherazade manual, is on the issue.com, so you can read it online, and also the Tales manual, you can read it online as well. Yes, and you will get the presentation, so you will get the links. Okay, that's it from my part. Thank you very much for being so quiet.
I think you deserve an applause. We do it like this. Perfect. Good. We still have some questions, and if you have any other questions, please put them in the chat. And this is maybe a bit more to Renilde, but if Guy wants to say something, it's also good, of course. So Annette, you had a question. Annette, where are you? Can you unmute yourself? I see you, but where's my cursor? Yeah. You had a question.
It was just I would just like to know how long does it take for the grant or for the application to go through? So if you apply by the deadline in March, how many months does it take until you get an answer?
Okay, how long does it take? If you apply in February for KA1, then at the end of May, mid-June, you should hear something. When you apply in March for KA2, then you'll get the answer, hopefully also at the end of June, beginning of July. But sometimes, like now, Corona time, it might be far later. And it also depends on agency to agency. We all have similar deadlines, but a big agency like Spain or Turkey, and so they sometimes need more time in order to get it all done.
Okay, so half a year roughly, or less than half a year.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Maria, you also had a question. Maria, can you come in and ask your question if you still remember it, and otherwise it's still in the chat. I think it was a bit about how much chance you have.
Hello everybody. It was more or less the same question that Annette asked, so it was answered, yes.
Okay, perfect. Wow, that's 2 in 1. Heidi, you had a very practical question about a chapter, European chapter. Maybe you can, for some people that's interesting.
At Oslomet University, they have told us that we need a charter.
Yeah, that's true.
Erasmus, or maybe for old also, because there's a new program in 2021, 2027, and then we need a charter. Well, I'm not going to write it, of course, but I see it, that Oslomet needs to have a charter. I don't know if it's only concerning higher education.
Only higher education for now. But there is now also, I didn't talk about it, but there's what we call accreditation call, which is now launched today. And that's for KA1. So in which one organization can say, We are an organization that want to send out people, teachers, staff, to go abroad and learn and do the things that I've just mentioned. And that's then, this organization has a kind of charter, like the European, the universities do. And then it might even be lucky so that it gets this accreditation for 7 years, so for the whole coming period. But this is very, very new, and it's mainly aimed for those who have a lot of learners to send out. But learning staff and or learners, but mainly learners. But in adult education, we don't have learners involved now in KA1. So it's only staff as educators. So not the people you are working with to learn them about stories and about heritage and so on, or languages or whatever. They cannot travel via KA1, only via KA2. And for the time being, this is not changing for the new program. So this accreditation might not be that necessary or that effective in the future for adult education in KA1. Sorry, but this is very, very new, and your national agency will tell you more about this accreditation very soon, because it was only launched today. We've had more information, but we don't expect that many applications now for the first year, next year. But the ordinary one, as far as we've had them now, will still be able to continue.
Great, thank you. Then Nick, you had a question about where you asked if you can apply for both, and you had another very nice comment. But Nick, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You arrived home safely?
Yeah,
see that.
back home and safe. Yes, thank you.
We're very glad that you're home safe. So maybe the second question. Start with that, and then I will look up.
Well, I have a couple of questions there. The first question was when we talked about learning. I've been working with a program called Learning Towards Well-Being, and I was wondering if that's more like then turning towards health, not like performance, but learning about yourself and well-being. So would that be possible? And then the follow-on question was
maybe do that question first.
Yeah, that's
Renilde, can you say something about that?
Unfortunately, even though well-being is so important, the Commission didn't put well-being as a key competence. I'm sorry, but they have key competences that are linked to it. I think when it's about cultural awareness and dealing with this multi-diverse society that we've become. So in that way, that's a part of well-being. And then I think of specific target groups that you might look at, like migrants, newcomers, people who have difficulties in surviving in our present daytime, our life. And how do we get them participate in society? Because if you don't feel well, you are sort of an outsider. And inclusion is very important for the program. So as such, if you target several specific groups, then you might find a way to get this well-being done in the end. But it's not the first thing. Like I think of the elderly, the seniors. They have been a little bit out of the focus of Erasmus Plus so far. That's a pity. They came in now this year. But if you look at seniors being lonely, and they have a lot to tell, a lot of stories. So you could gather them and with youngsters and do something in intergenerational learning, for instance, together with youngsters and seniors, so that they, that this, shall I say, this interconnection among each other, and that can contribute to well-being, doesn't that? So in that way, and also, for instance, if you can make people participate via storytelling into further learning. For instance, if you have a project in a museum or an area where you invite people, you tell stories about certain portraits, some things that are there in the museum to see. And then later on, you can stimulate them to go further to other things that the museum has to offer. So the participation in this non-formal learning via storytelling, then going on further to other things of learning. Yeah, lifelong learning doesn't stop after your storytelling and the things that you've been doing, and you can stimulate them via storytelling to go into even formal learning, maybe into language learning, could be very possible too. So if you could make that link from starting from storytelling, then it's important. That's a good thing, a very valuable thing in Erasmus Plus too. And that can start with well-being, but you try to make them learn more and more and longer. Okay?
Great. Very good answer. Nick, and your other question was more practical. Can you ask
Yes. So my second question was more along the lines, let's say one has a multiple project. Could one apply for both KA1 and KA2 for the same project? And the follow-on question to that one, how is there like a balance quota versus expenses or salary? Can I have salary in my application for surviving for bread money, or is it mainly for travels and expenses?
Yeah, well, you can combine KA1 and KA2. For KA1, you can only do one application per call, per round. For KA2, you can do as many as you want. And if you can do them, yeah, you have to be realistic in how much work you want to have. In KA1, you could be a partner in a consortium, and you still can then apply as an individual organization. So you can be one of the multi-houses, yeah, the number of houses, partner in one consortium, but then still you can apply for something else as an individual organization. That's possible. So in that way, then you have two applications, but you can never apply for the same thing twice. There should be something that it must be a different project, yeah. And then when it comes to salaries go in only for the innovation project. So where you have output-oriented projects, partnerships, so where you make something, and then this, when you come to didactic materials, manuals, and so, there you can have staff costs. But it's only for the making, the production, the developing of those outcomes. So not for the project as such, but you do get money for project management, for travel costs, and so on. And I hear for KA1 that there the funding is really good. Yeah? People don't have to invest anything extra. Of course, the time that you spend during your learning mobility, if you are on job shadowing, you don't get that paid. Yeah, no. I mean, some will still have their salary, most of us, but for the UK it might be different. But for the other countries, it depends on your local situation, I think. But normally your salary goes on, yeah. And yeah, if you're independent, if you're a self-employed organization or storyteller, then obviously, yeah, you don't get your income anymore. But you can go on this learning mobility, and there you have, I hope, a marvelous experience, and that's also a lot worth, I think, yeah, very valuable.
Absolutely. Great. Are there any other questions? We didn't see any questions in the chat, but I see John raising his hand. So, John, can I ask you to?
Thanks. Is there any professional help available for writing an application?
Is it only me? I think nobody can hear anything anymore. No,
she's gone.
She's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds very harsh.
This shall remain unanswered.
Sorry.
And he is also, I think they both have a very weak connection. So let's see if they can solve it. I think she's gone completely now. So I just wanted to say one little thing. As Renilde is working for the Agency for Education and adult education, but for the people, organizations dealing with young people, and young is nowadays until 32. But there are also possibilities, and they also have KA1 and KA2 strategic partnership. So also the youth agencies have these possibilities. So if you want to exchange youth groups for informal learning, or if you want to do a strategic partnership which is focusing on youth, then it's also possible to see the possibilities at the Youth National Agency. And the good thing is they have 3 deadlines. So where the adult learning only has 1, the Youth National Agency of the Youth grant scheme has 3 possibilities. So maybe it's when you work with youth or when you're younger yourself, because some of us are still younger, take a look at those possibilities as well. I think Renilde is really gone.
I'm back. I'm
You're
back.
back. Yeah. Can you maybe, so John, do we all have the question of John still in our minds? Or maybe
Shall I say it again?
maybe
Is there any professional help available for writing an application?
Yes, yes, all agencies try to do their best. We in Flanders, we feel that we cannot really read a full application. We don't do that because we are somewhere involved in the selection. And then, so we have 2 organizations, which is Aldenbiesen, where Guy used to work, and there's another one in the west of our country, and they both have a contract with the ministry, and they read applications. But only for the Flemish, I'm sorry. This really depends on country to country. Yeah? But all agencies will offer help. And there are also organizations that give training in writing applications. But working for a national agency, I don't like that, because you often get such a woo-hoo-hoo-hoo application that's not really realistic or down to earth, and not really, how shall I say, you have professional writers, but they don't know the organization that wants to apply, and they write something that's perfectly written, but you don't know what comes out of it, because it's too, a lot in the air, but not really.
Airy fairy, we say. Airy fairy.
Yeah.
Good, thank you for that answer. Is there any other question?
Just to follow on that one, I was just wondering, from your experience, how much time would one generally need to invest in one application when I was asking about doing several? Kind of good to know.
Oh, that's also hard to say. KA1 is easier, but you have to find, places where you can go and learn. That's already some time that you have to spend. That's why it's good that you know beforehand that these possibilities are there, so that you can get prepared for it and know, okay, this is maybe something. But also interesting in KA1 is if you say, look, I want to do this job shadowing, or I want to go there, later on, if you find something that's better, then you can still change. But it should be within the objectives, within the things you wanted to learn. It should be the similar thing. You cannot go all of a sudden say and do something about climate change, which is very urgent nowadays as well. And you could do a lot about care for the environment, and so also via stories. But if you haven't had that into your project application as such, then you cannot just grab it and take it then when you handed it in. If it's not there, it should, what you are doing or want to do should be part of your needs, and then you can still change. That's also a possibility. But then a KA2 is longer. Here you have lots of possibilities to cooperate with all the colleagues that are here around this virtual or in this virtual meeting. But maybe you need other organizations to participate as well, like a teacher training or a museum or a library or whatever. There are so many, or a local authority. There are many possibilities. So for a KA2, you might want to find an a group of organizations that can together put or develop this outcome. But I really want to make a plea for the process-oriented or the exchange projects in KA2. They are easier, far easier. And there you don't get staff costs, I know, but they are really worthwhile because it's far more having the exchange among each other. And what you're doing here and what we were doing in the last meeting that I attended shortly, this is a wealth, this is a richness. Then if you can meet, if you get money for that, you can meet, you can try things. It gives you stimulus that's really worthwhile. And that's why I make a plea for these smaller projects in which you have this exchange of experience. And then later on, you can try maybe to do something. Look, we have developed this and that among ourselves, but now we want to make it in a professional way so that we can spread it throughout Europe. But if you go for the money, and that's what a lot of Flemish have done, they go for money, they want the staff costs in, and then they fail because what they are aiming for is not really what we want to have. So the quality is often missing in this kind of projects, whereas the exchange are really easier projects, far more closer to your heart of the organization, of your learners, because you can take them along, and that's really a richness, I have to say.
Great, thank you. And maybe I can add from my own experience for Nick. Writing the application itself, okay, it costs some days, but it's not that you are writing for 3 whole months. But indeed, building the partnership, that costs a lot of time. And I think also this partnership should indeed be strong, because when you have a strong partnership and you start with a strong partnership, you are more likely to have a successful project than when you just look for some partners, put them in an application and hand it in, and that's a recipe for disaster. So invest a lot of time in building these partnerships. I think that's one of the keys for a successful project, and I hope Renilde agrees with this. Good. Is there any? Heidi had another question I saw in the chat. And
yeah, I guess the same. You're already talking about it, because in other European funded projects, you are able to make sort of a call for partners out on a website. You understand what I mean? Are you able to do the same with Erasmus Plus? Because it's not easy to find partners due to the salary. I mean, due to that people are not, I mean, that's not easy to find storytellers who wants to do a thing for free. So how do you find good partners?
Yeah, good ones. It's always good to have meetings virtually. We in Flanders, we also have money for preparatory visits, as we call them. So where people can ask for money in order to go and see one of the partners that they like to meet, to see whether it's possible to work out a project in KA1 and in KA2. But you can go to IPALE. IPALE is a virtual, I'll pass on the link. It's a virtual world for adult education. You can find partners there. And then for school education, there's a school education gateway, where there's also a partner search. But then it's also interesting to use things like Aldenbiesen. They know a lot of, they have also a lot of contacts. There are, you can use colleagues, but indeed, yeah, so, and FEST might help, yeah, could also be a good way to find partners, or the internet, or then there's the Erasmus Plus projects results platform, where you can find all people or organizations that are or have been involved and were involved in European projects. And that's also, you can look for topics, for themes, and meanwhile try to discover who's been active and what have they been doing, and yeah, in that way. And the internet.
Great. We have time for one final question, if there is one. So raise your hand if you have really something you always want to ask. No, and that you think, okay, I'm going to ask this and then I can die. No? No, no, strange. Okay, well, then it was so clear that, in the early days I thought, well, when you don't get a lot of questions, then people are not interested. But more and more I start to realize that if you just have a clear story, like Renilde and Guy had, then, well, everything is clear. So why ask any further questions? So thank you, Renilde, thank you, Guy, for this explanation. So one last yes. And so to all of you, I would like to thank you for attending this third FEST forum. And we're already looking forward to the fourth one in 2 weeks. And meanwhile, in the back, we were preparing it already. Then we're going to talk about something we promised already in the first talk, namely video and storytelling. As we are all now busy with taping ourselves with our mobile phone or with professional gear, etc. And some of us say, no, I won't do it because I don't look good at camera. And so there is a lot to discuss. So in 2 weeks, we will have that discussion with an introduction. So we show some clips, and maybe we ask some professionals also to take a look at it and to react on it in a friendly way. So that's what we're going to do in 2 weeks. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining, and hope to see you all next time again. Okay, bye-bye.